Well, if the Preds need to jumpstart the second half of the season, look no further than Saturday afternoon's game against the Philadelphia Flyers to do just that. A preview of that game coming up and takes from a hat. Some hot topics Ann and I are going to answer today on the Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day. Every single day, we are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast that's available to you wherever you get your podcast. And of course, you can watch us on YouTube as well. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer and editor at ontheforecheck.com, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer and editor at InsideThePreds.com.
We also have a financial partner in crime. Our episode today is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Perfect time to have a FanDuel sponsorship in because I have a feeling a lot of people are going to access that app on Sunday. Super Bowl weekend.
Yeah.
It's cheese ball time for you.
This is when I really shine. Look, people, I can make amazing cookies, but I also have this cheese ball recipe from the same old lady Swedish cookbook that Miss Audrey's mashed potatoes came from. And this cheese ball slaps. And what is so cool about it is it tastes great, but I also make it into a shape of something. What's it going to be this year, friends? I don't know yet, but it's going to be amazing.
Yeah. Quick 2-second response. What's your prediction for Super Bowl?
Eagles.
Oh, I think Chiefs.
I know. And I won't be surprised.
Yeah.
That's the pick of my heart. I will not be surprised if the Chiefs do it with Travis Kelce and with Patrick Mahomes. Anything is possible. Literally, human flight is possible with them. But I'm going Eagles. I'm a Pennsylvania girl.
We'll have to circle back. There might be some Super Bowl related Predators questions in our takes from a hat. We got a lot of hot topics, including some on the Predators playoff run, a couple of breakdowns on players. We'll get to that in a second, but first we have to eat our entree before we get to our dessert. And that is the Nashville Predators schedule this weekend. One game tomorrow afternoon against the Philadelphia Flyers. A very, very weird team. Not even like, you wouldn't say they're one of like the worst teams or one of the best teams. You would just say they may be the weirdest team in the NHL this season. 1 second they look like they might be in the Connor Bedard sweepstakes. The next minute they're on a hot streak. Yeah, basically John Tortorella throwing what's his face, Tony D'Angelo under the bus. You have him basically kind of undermining the GM and say, all right, this roster sucks, like putting out statements. I don't know what's going on in Philly right now, but it's entertaining.
It's entertaining.
The Real Housewives is entertaining.
It's entertaining because there's enough distance. But here's what's real about the Philadelphia Flyers. If the Nashville Predators stood and looked in a magic mirror, it could very well be the Philadelphia Flyers staring back at them. They're having kind of the same thing that we're having in Nashville, where it's like 1 minute we're like, okay, won 3 games before the All-Star break against playoff caliber teams. Oh, it's on in Nashville. And then the next minute, they come out and lose 5-1 to Vegas in just alarming fashion, where you're thinking to yourself, is this a high school hockey team that accidentally slipped into the locker room? Like, the Flyers are kind of in that same muddied space that the Predators are. And I just, it makes this game very tricky to predict, because who knows which team from which city is going to show up on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, it's funny, you go through the similarities, and there's a lot of similarities between the Preds and Flyers. The only difference is that the Preds have Juuse Saros, who was
Huge.
willing them to games. And the Flyers don't really have a Juuse Saros. I will say Carter Hart,
Mhm.
who 2 years ago had one of the worst, historically bad seasons by a regular starting goaltender,
Mhm.
like 877 save percentage, and everybody's like, oh yeah, he's bad. Over the past 2 seasons, he's slowly kind of gone back up to like the pre-pandemic Carter
Right.
Hart, the one that everybody thought, was going to be one of the top goalies in the NHL for a long time. Decent season, 913 save percentage. Doesn't have a lot of help in front of him right now, unfortunately, but a little bit better there. But goaltending to me, and it was the key the first time these teams met back in October. It's going to be the key to this one, I feel, too.
Yeah. That, and I think Nashville has got to they've got to get to their offensive production really quick. And not just because they didn't get to it until the third period against Vegas in their last game, but I think against Philadelphia, you want to kind of shake things up really quick. So Nashville needs to get on the board first and then continue offensive production. So for me, I think a key is you've got to get players like Forsberg, Duchene, Cody Glass, that line together, get some shots on goal. The other thing is, what I want to see are some of these quieter guys getting some offensive production. You know who I miss scoring goals is Nino Niederreiter.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would love to see Nino Niederreiter, Johansson, Mikael Granlund. Let's get that line going and get some offensive production up and down the lineup. And I think that that's going to help Nashville tremendously. But again, you look at these two teams, you look at things like their power play percentage, penalty kill, goals for per game, goals against per game. I mean, you're looking at teams that are very, very similar. So, Matt Duchene said after the Vegas game, a lot of times it's the team that comes out, and they are the sharpest right away that can pull off the win. That's what Nashville needs to be. So I think a quick start, a good start, an aggressive start for Nashville could be a difference maker in this game.
Yeah, Nino Niederreiter, January 12th, his last goal, which also happened to be his last point.
I miss
So
Nino.
he is struggling for
Yeah.
offense this year, which I think complicates the Predators' problems because, hey, why did they give him a big $4 million contract?
Right.
Depth scoring.
Depth scoring. Yep.
Yeah. The Flyers, though, Anne. I mean, I'm sure you saw the comments on John Tortorella basically throwing Tony DeAngelo under the bus, basically saying, he kind of sucks more than we thought he sucks. And then you saw last week John Tortorella. It's interesting. John Tortorella, not the front office, not the team, put
Right.
out one of those big, long statements about it's like, hey, we're not where we need to be. We're going to need some patience. This is going to be a long thing. Basically, trying to prepare everybody for a rebuild.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what do you make of those two comments? Because it seems like that's very much a Tortorella not happy with the GM's roster kind of
Yeah.
situation.
It reminds me of the movie A Few Good Men, where the two Marines that committed the code red are like, you don't break the code. And I feel like John Tortorella just disobeyed orders and committed a code red. By doing that, and yet
But
it's
he's
very
right.
on I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm saying, but we just, like, to quote the Southern Baptist women, we just don't do it that way. So I think it's very shocking, but I also think, look, a little truth, well, it probably hurt some people, but a little bit of truth, like, there it is. I am fascinated from a distance by John Tortorella. But, from a distance, that's the key phrase in there. Like, I'm not sure I would want him to coach the Nashville Predators and have to talk with him. Bold move. And, there is something to be said on the one hand for just laying it out there and saying, look, you know what, this is a little bit of a disappointment and here's what's real about this team. But I would agree with you. It coming from the coach, like, we just don't do it like that, John Tortorella. And I'm not saying he's wrong, and I'm not saying maybe we shouldn't do it like that, but it's a little bit shocking.
Yeah. It's definitely a situation where it feels like Chuck Fletcher is his time is limited, and maybe like John Tortorella is lobbying towards give me more power, let me choose a GM, that
Yes.
kind of thing. Like you see in
Yeah.
football sometimes where it's like the coach is kind of the guy that yields most of the power.
Yeah.
Well, it's fun. It's fun from an entertainment standpoint.
From
That's
a
for sure.
distance.
You know what else is fun, Ann?
What's that?
The Super Bowl.
Come
And
on.
this year, the only app you need at your Super Bowl party is FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Really excited to have our new betting partner for Locked On board because they're the #1 sportsbook in America. And if you're new to FanDuel, even better, got a great deal for you. You can download FanDuel now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no sweat first bet. And you'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. How fantastic is that? FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to the point spreads. Who will score a touchdown? How many passing yards Patrick Mahomes have? Will Jalen Hurts get a rushing touchdown? That vaunted Eagles defensive line, how many sacks will they have? All things that you can bet on FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, super easy to use, and best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/LockedOn to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. Again, FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and now the betting partner of Locked On Predators. All right, Ann, takes from a hat.
Come on.
If you guys have listened to the Locked On Predators podcast before, you know how this works. Ann and I will just have a variety of quick topics that we have in the hat here, almost like scenes from a hat from Whose Line Is It Anyway, if you ever watched that back in the day. We will be taking topics at random and quizzing each other on them, or maybe not quizzing, grilling, discussing, jump starting. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, you guys know how it works.
Ann,
start us off. What you got?
All right. I'm reaching into my Predators hat. Oh, hey, this is a good one here. Oh, good luck. Okay. So a lot of mine, full disclosure, Super Bowl themed. Some of them aren't, but a lot of them are. Patrick Mahomes was just named the NFL's MVP. Which Nashville Predators player, under different circumstances, for example, on a different team, if Connor McDavid fell over and couldn't compete, has actual league MVP potential?
On a different, I'm torn between two.
Okay.
In a different, let's start on a different team under a different circumstance. Roman Josi is a game-changing type player. Like I think, still to this day, is a player that I don't think people truly appreciate how good he is because of the market he plays in. You saw what he did last year. He's like the centerpiece of an offense. I mean, almost got 100 points last year. Defensively, maybe a little bit of a fall off this year since he's kind of taken on this different role under John Hines. But hey, as we saw in his Norris Trophy winning season back in 2020, he was one of the best defenders in the NHL. And he can still be that. He's just kind of a jack of all trades that you don't see a lot from NHL defensemen. And if he was like the centerpiece of, let's say, the Toronto Maple Leafs or New York Rangers instead of Adam Fox, like that, like the kind of role he plays for the Nashville Predators on a team with more prolific scores and, like maybe a better stay-at-home defensive pairing or better team defense. I think he's legitimately somebody who would be looked on as one of the best players in the league. Not just one of the best defensemen, one of the best players in the league.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. And I agree with you. I think Roman Josi is so underappreciated across the league. You listen to other broadcasts and of course they mention him, but I don't think people fully understand how crucial he is in Nashville and what he could bring in a different scenario. I agree with you. And I think a lot of it is market, which sucks.
Yeah. The other one I was going with would be Juuse Saros for
Mm.
obvious reasons, but I think
Yeah.
if the Predators had a better record, he's an MVP candidate for sure. I think in the betting odds right now, he's 17th in Hart Trophy. We just did a power rankings where I put him 5th, where I put him top 5.
Yeah.
Just because that's the only thing keeping the Predators afloat right now is Juuse Saros.
Yep.
All right. Let's see what we got for you, Ann.
All right.
There are some football ones, but this is mostly hockey.
I'm here for that.
Name one team you absolutely do not, under any circumstances, want to see in the first round of the playoffs if you're the Nashville Predators.
Wow. Great question. One team I do not want to see.
We touched on this a little bit.
We did. We
last
did.
week.
You know what is so funny, and I almost want to see Colorado just for the vindication. I want to see it. I will say the team that I would least probably want to see in the first round would be the Dallas Stars. For a couple reasons. Number one, I just think that I think they're going to hit where they need to hit when it comes playoff time. I think that they're a really complete team. And also, I just hate them. Like, I'm still so mad. I'm still so mad that they cut checks to Corey Perry and that we lost to them in the Winter Classic. But I do think that the Dallas Stars, especially when you're looking at like the Central Division, I think the Dallas Stars are going to be the tough team to beat. Like we've seen the Predators beat Winnipeg, Minnesota. I don't really even know what's happening in Minnesota. I don't think Minnesota knows what's happening in Minnesota right now. So not worried about them. Even the Avalanche. You know what? I would not feel totally intimidated against the Avalanche this season, but Dallas,
they are starting to heat up again. I will say that about Colorado.
They are, and as they get people back, and they get those injured people are coming back and getting more confident. I think they're going to trend in the right direction come playoff time. But even so, for me, Dallas is the team I would least like to see. I feel like that would be the team that would be hardest to get out of the first round against.
Yeah. If it's a situation where the Predators wind up in one of the wild card spots, would not want to go in the Central Division bracket and play Edmonton if they go number one. Because not only, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, not only do those two guys have the Preds number, but top to bottom, that's exactly the type of team. The fast speed, a lot of finesse that the Preds absolutely do not match up well against.
Yeah.
I would like to avoid that with a play, because I have to be honest, I think that's another 4-game sweep.
Oh, it would have the potential
unless Juuse Saros steals one. I think that's another 4-game sweep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
The other team I would not want to see, just because I couldn't take the social media, is please don't make us play the Seattle Kraken.
No.
I don't want to hear Ellie Tolvanen versus the Nashville Predators.
Oh, yeah.
No
I thought
more.
you were talking about like Seattle's first ever win or anything like that.
Oh, no, we already did that for them. You're welcome.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I agree. I will stay off social media that week.
Yeah, no. All right, so it's me for you. Let's see here. All right. What do we got?
What do we got?
Okay. This is way out. I just went wild on this one, but let's just hit this. Okay. If you got your hands on a vial of truth serum and could use the single dose on one Nashville Predators player, coach, or staff person and ask them only one question, you get one question before it wears off, who would you use it on? And what is your one question you would ask them?
Oh. Okay. I think I know.
Okay.
I think it would be there's a bunch of questions you can ask John Hines about some of the roster decisions. That's number one. But I think I kind of know what at least in his mind he's going for. Here's the question I would ask David Poyle.
Come on.
And I would say, Do you really believe the core of this team is a Stanley Cup contender, or are you getting a mandate from somebody higher up than you in those ownership meetings that are basically telling you you can't tear this down, you can't rebuild, you got to try to go for it? That would be a juicy conversation because I feel like the answer to that maybe would change the perspective on David Poyle. Like, it feels like he is being tasked. Like, and there's kind of been whispers of that from around the league, both, writers here and, guys like Elliot Friedman abroad, where it's basically kind of hinting that the Preds ownership is, not interested in a long-term rebuild, that kind of the mandate is, try to keep this competitive for as long as you possibly can. Like, that's going to be your role. I'm interested if there's any truth to that. And if there is, what does Poyle really think of this team? Like, would he have maybe pulled the trigger on some more long-term moves? I mean, he's done a couple, like giving away Victor Arvidsson, Ryan Ellis for Cody Glass, which looks like, hey, that may be a trade win for Nashville, depending on Cody Glass's development over the next few years. But I would be very curious to dive into that a little bit more.
That would be juicy.
Yeah.
Like I think a lot
juicy.
of people that would be juicy.
Yeah.
I like it. All right, we probably have more questions. So,
we do. Okay. Let's see here, Ann. Let me get a good one for you.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Which Predator would star in the best Super Bowl commercial?
Oh, what a great question. Which Predator? I know the obvious answer, but I'm going to give this just another second of thought because I don't want to miss anything.
Okay. I feel like I know your obvious answer too.
Yeah. Okay, I'm actually okay, the obvious answer, Ryan Johansson.
That wasn't going to be what I thought you were
Really? Oh, for me, Ryan Johansson strikes me as somebody that could sell, snake oil. Like, I mean, just he is charismatic, he is engaging. And I think that is a man who could sell a product. Who is your obvious answer?
I was going to say Philip Forsberg.
Oh, it would depend on the product. But yeah, I could see that.
Like mustache cream?
Oh, done and done. How he does not have a deal is shocking to me.
He's got to have any kind of brawny type product. Like maybe he's a lumberjack in a paper towels or scented soap for men.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know my other answer? And again, so much depends on the product, but if you're looking for somebody to replace Sarah McLachlan in the ASPCA commercials, Cody Glass.
Jesus Christ, what?
I'm saying, if you're
singing?
No, he doesn't have to even sing, but I'm just thinking if you're looking for somebody just with earnestness who is looking to move your heart, Cody Glass is your person. If you're looking for engaging and entertaining, 100% think it's Ryan Johansson. Yeah.
Okay, is he? I need to circle back on this Cody Glass thing. Does he just come across as sad all the time?
No, not sad at all. I just think he's very earnest. That's what I mean by that. He's just earnest. You know what I'm saying? If Cody Glass, that this is just my read on it and, take it for what it's worth. But I feel like, first of all, Cody Glass, and I think a lot of the Predators would champion animals because, we've got animal lovers on this team, which is amazing.
Adorable. Yes.
They're adorable. But I just think Cody Glass is just very earnest. If he really feels strongly about helping dogs that are chained outside in the wintertime, you're going to want to go out and help the dogs that are chained outside in the wintertime.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is it me?
It is you. Yes.
You're please move on. I'm disturbed. Okay, what's this one? Oh, okay. Here we go. The cost of a Super Bowl ad, little bit of trivia, has increased 204% in the last 20 years. A huge increase. Speaking of increases, which Predators player would you say is worth a big increase when it comes to their salary?
Ooh. So like this is like maybe a player who is being underpaid right now.
Underpaid. Yeah, underpaid right now.
Well, I feel like there's an obvious answer here, and that's Alexander Carrier, right?
Okay. Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
go through, I mean, he's making less than Kevin Gravel this year, if that tells you anything. I mean, he is on
Yes.
like the bare minimum of what an
Mhm.
NHL salary is, and yet he has been one of the Predators' most important players, not just for this year, but for the past 3 seasons now.
Yes.
Remember, when he came up during that weird COVID late start year, and everybody thought, "Oh, this guy is just a villain." He was one of the Preds' best defenders then, after
Yes.
he made his call up. Like, he fit right into the lineup, wound up winning his spot last year during his first full season, and everybody is like, "Is the dam gonna break? Is this just a feel-good story?" But it seems like he's grown. Like,
Mhm.
it seems like he keeps kind of growing his all-around game, and his offensive numbers this year, not quite where they were last year, but defensively, many more high IQ plays this year. He's got
For
good chemistry
sure.
with Matthias Ekholm. This is a guy, you watch his game and you kinda watch his history. I mean, he's worth like 4.5 million. Like, there's a team that would definitely pay, that kind of money for him, maybe even more than that. And this is a guy
Mhm.
making league minimum. And yeah, yesterday when we had our whole salary cap discussion, Alexander Carrier was one of the people we had in mind because the Predators are going to have to give him a big
They
raise.
are. Yeah, I would agree with you. And I think his value as a player individually, huge. I agree with you. I'm thinking, you're talking that kind of money. But then what he and Matthias Ekholm bring together as a defensive pairing, I mean, you can go out and pay that same amount of money to another defenseman and bring him in with Ekholm, but I don't know if you're going to get the magic that they have. They are a top pair. They really are a fantastic pair. So yeah, I agree with you. I would say UC Saros is also underpaid.
I was going to say, based on his season, you could justify him having like $3 million per year more.
Yes. Yeah. Just he's a critical piece.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's understatement of the year. Yeah.
Yes.
All
Captain
right, what do I have
Understatement.
for you, Ann? All right, we're going back to the football field.
Okay, let's do it.
Your team is in the Super Bowl.
Mhm.
You're down by 4, and you need
Mhm.
to go 95 yards in 2 minutes and 10 seconds in the fourth quarter to win the game.
Okay.
Which Predator are you putting at quarterback?
Oh my gosh.
Who's the clutch guy
Who's the clutch
behind center?
guy? Wow, that's a great question. You know what's funny? Obvious answer for me, just across the board, is Roman Josi. I think Roman Josi is the go-to guy for the Nashville Predators. Looking back on a couple situations where the Nashville Predators were kind of in that hockey parallel, you know who has come through for them is Mikael Granlund.
Mm,
Mikael Granlund
okay.
has had a couple of like literal last second, 0.3 second, 3-second left, tie the game to take it to overtime plays. But here's the thing, we are not seeing that from Mikael Granlund this season.
Yeah.
And that's been a really interesting watch for me. Mikael Granlund, you and I have talked about, last season, this was somebody who was sort of an under the radar factor. You looked at the season Forsberg and Duchene had, who was there with them, Mikael Granlund. He was this
Yeah.
under the radar guy making things happen. We're not seeing that necessarily from him this season. So at this time right now, Roman Josi is the go-to. He is the cool under pressure. He is the I know what needs to happen. I execute things well under pressure. For me, Roman Yosi's the go-to guy when it comes to a situation like that for the Predators.
I would go UC Saros, and the story
Mm,
is, like, when Joe Montana, beat the Bengals on what's now known as that drive, where he basically went across, on the length of the field in less than 2 minutes.
Yes.
The famous story that everybody tells is he was in the huddle before the drive started. And, this is do or die for the 49ers. And Joe Montana walked in the huddle, pointed up to the stands and said, "Is that John Candy right there?" Like basically like looking at the crowd. But it was like the thing was like, hey, this moment doesn't faze me. I'm having fun. Let's go win a game. I have no pressure on me at all. That feels like Juuse Saros. Like the guy that no matter what happens in a game, he's just going to sit there with his little derp smile and his little mustache and just take it all in stride. Nothing is going to faze that man.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I wonder how much of that is, I'm always so fascinated by this, how much of that is just self-confidence and past experience, because let's face it, Juuse Saros is the man for the Nashville Predators. And I wonder how much of that is just culturally Finnish, because if you look at the Finnish players, those guys are cool as a cucumber all the time.
It's cold in Finland. That's why. We got time for one more, Anne.
We got time for one more. All right. Let me reach into this hat and see what we're pulling out here. Oh, okay. This is hockey, strictly straight up hockey, and well-timed, if I do say so myself.
All right.
So depending on how the Preds do in the next handful of games, there is a chance that David Poile could go out and sign a few rental depth players. Okay. Which of his previous rental players did you like the most and why?
Ooh, okay. So these were strictly rentals.
Yeah, or they brought in kind of towards the end of the season, and what happened after that, who
I think is very underappreciated in Predators lore. This is going back a ways. Mike Sillinger. In 2006, one of my favorite one and done Preds of all time.
Yeah.
This was a guy. I think he holds the record right now, or some kind of record for most NHL teams ever played for, or most trades involved. It's something like that. I mean, he's played for everybody. So he came over from, I believe it was the St. Louis Blues, and he's always kind of been just a middle six guy, and he slotted into a line with Steve Sullivan and Paul Kariya. He wound up being the center on that line. And he did gangbusters. He had a lot of high scoring. He was one of the Predators' best players in their Thomas Vokoun injury, short induced playoff run. Against the San Jose Sharks, who everybody, who's an old school Preds fan knows the Sharks were the bane of the Predators' existence back in that time period. But I remember he was just always kind of, always scoring no matter what, that consistent kind of player. A little bit surprised the Preds wound up not re-signing him. They went out and got Jason Arnott instead, but he was, I think, my favorite, pure rental that didn't stay long term.
Yeah.
If you're talking best deadline deal, then Steve Sullivan is probably hands down it for me. Maybe Mike Fisher a close second, but if you're talking about pure rentals, Mike Sillinger I think tops that list.
Very interesting. You know who I loved for just, and again, not even remotely statistical reasons, but just fell in love with this player and to this day adore? Wayne Simmonds. I know a lot of people look at that rental and they're like, what? Seriously?
Wayne Simmonds or Brian Boyle. Brian
Boyle. We don't talk enough about that guy.
Brian Boyle is a guy that I think fit in absolutely perfectly for the Predators and actually did the job that the Predators needed him to do.
Yes.
I feel like Brian Boyle is very underappreciated just because that trade deadline in particular was pure chaos for the Nashville Predators. That was the Granlund year too. So that is definitely an entry in Predators lore. But Brian Boyle to me, in terms of recent ones, that's a guy I'd pick too.
Yeah. Still love Wayne Simmonds though. I will tell you, there was something about him. I'm like, okay, You and we should hang out.
Yeah. I love that question. That is a great one to end on. Yeah. And where can people find your work?
So you can find my work online at InsideThePreds.com. You can find me on Twitter at @NK_Mama on Ice.
You can find me on Twitter at _NS Morgan. Follow my work at ontheforecheck.com. And back on Twitter, you can follow the podcast at LO_Predators. And also be sure to subscribe however you usually listen to us, whether it's on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We'll be back next week with an all-new episode. We'll see you then.